matter on behalf of Minister Humphreys. I suppose for me today, my ask is very reasonable. I believe that people who do suffer with epilepsy should have an entitlement to free travel. There are 40,000 people in Ireland living with epilepsy and approximately 1,200 in Louth. I believe and fully support Epilepsy Ireland's call to have free travel be automatically extended to those who lose their licence due to a breakthrough seizure, where they automatically lose their licence for at least 1 year until they become 1 year seizure-free. There is also a need to see the free travel scheme established in such a way whereby people who can receive the payment directly. At the moment, the scheme is exclusively linked to other payments such as disability allowance or invalidity pension. This would allow people who would never be able to drive and who do not qualify for disability allowance or invalidity pension to apply directly for the scheme. I must be clear that we and myself and Epilepsy Ireland are not proposing that all 40,000 people in Ireland with epilepsy would automatically be given free travel. Epilepsy Ireland loosely estimates that proposals would benefit 5,000 to 6,000 people with epilepsy, as 70% of those living with the condition will go on to be seizure-free. For those who are within 30%, some will qualify for state schemes such as disability allowance or invalidity pension. This would approximately directly cost of bringing this amount of people into the free travel scheme would be about £500,000. There is no doubt there will be an argument from the Department on the potential floodgates and the claims of high costs, but there will always be costs. But Minister, I do believe that we have a real obligation, particularly when we have accepted and signed up to the UN Convention of Persons with Disabilities. We have under that convention, we have a right to enable people with disabilities to live independently, participate fully in all parts of life. We have an onus upon us to reduce barriers. And if you're a person who has had a driving licence, who is partaking in education, in work, partaking very normally, like all the rest of us in society, and then have a seizure and be put off the road for 12 months, quite often, and I have heard awful stories, really terrible stories of people who are now unemployed, have to give up education because they cannot afford to get on to public transport or indeed access to public transport. So, Minister, I really would hope that we do get some sort of positive reply from you this morning. Thank you.
And I thank the Senator for her question. First and foremost, it's important to say that my answer is coming from the perspective of the Department of Social Protection, which administers the free travel scheme. The free travel scheme provides free travel and public transport services for those eligible under the scheme. There are two broad categories of people who can qualify for the free travel scheme: those aged 66 and over who are resident in Ireland, and this wide category will cover a significant number of people that the Senator refers to. Secondly, those that qualify for certain social welfare payments may be eligible. The second category of people include those who are entitled to blind pension, disability allowance, invalidity pension and carers allowance, or an equivalent social security payment from a country covered by EC regulations, or one with which Ireland has a bilateral social security agreement. Overall, there are approximately 999,000 people with direct eligibility, with an annual allocation of €95 million provided to fund the scheme. The majority of supports provided by the Department are provided via an income support approach. And while medical evidence is required to determine eligibility for certain social welfare payments, medical evidence alone does not generally determine eligibility directly for the free travel scheme. There must generally also be an eligibility for a particular social welfare payment confirmed. If the free travel scheme were to be extended on the basis of medical evidence alone, regardless of whether a person is in receipt of a qualifying social welfare payment, a medical assessment process will be required for all such applications in order to adjudicate eligibility, thereby significantly changing the nature of the scheme. Any decision to extend the free travel scheme in such a manner would require additional funding and significant administrative changes, and accordingly any proposed change could only be considered in the context of overall budgetary negotiations. However, a very important point to note is that there is a mechanism whereby people who cannot reasonably meet their transport costs from their own resources can apply for financial assistance. The Supplementary Welfare Allowance Scheme, administered by my department, is designed to enable persons to seek assistance in the form of an exceptional needs payment where they cannot meet a necessary cost from their own resources. Under the SWA, my department may award an emergency needs payment for travel costs where the circumstances of a particular case so warrant. Every decision is based on consideration of the individual circumstances, taking account of the nature and extent of the need and of the resources of the person concerned. Figures available to me for 2019 showed that there were 17,214 emergency needs payments made in respect of travel needs, with payments totalling €1.2 million. It is important that people are made aware of the SWA and the availability of the emergency needs payments for costs, including travel costs, that cannot be reasonably met from their own resources. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. And yes, I suppose I was preempting your part of your response there. And I suppose for me it is we have an obligation to open up the world for every single citizen. And as I said, under the UN CRPD, we do have the obligation to reduce and eliminate obstacles and barriers in relation to accessibility. And I hope that you, Minister, can bring back to the department and say that we do need to relook at this scheme and see just because something has been done and we see COVID how things have changed on a whole matter of issues. So just because something has to be done. Has been done for the same way for so long. Let's look at this and see how we can provide free travel or more opportunity and more opportunity for people and to make people's lives a lot easier. And we do all agree, and we have seen that those hidden costs of disabilities, and this is again the hidden costs. And I suppose thank you for the information on the Supplementary Welfare Allowance Scheme. I'm sure that has helped and will help, but it won't help everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I do understand the frustrations and difficulties of anyone who suffers increased travel costs because of their disability, and personally as well, my own father actually faced this issue as well anytime he had an episode 12 months after road, so I do understand it. However, any extension to the eligibility criteria for the free travel scheme can only be considered while taking account of the objectives of the scheme as well as funding. Any decision that could result in significant extra funding requirements and additional administrative measures for a scheme could only be considered in the wider context of overall budgetary negotiations. And just a reminder about the SWA option as well, and I will bring the issue to Minister Humphreys this morning. I'll be talking to her later this morning. So